And I'm probably out there probably as much as anybody in terms of opposition to his policy. But I think he's a very unique, smart, bright individual, and he is our president, and I think we ought to support him where we can, and we certainly ought to try to nurture our relationships with him so we can have dialogue.
Let's hear from Ted, calling us from Illinois. Hi, Ted.
My question is, there was a new Republican House member that just got elected by bashing the health care. But then when he went through his orientation, he had a problem with not receiving it for 28 days, and then he wanted to know if he could buy the government health plan. My question is, when will the hypocrisy end, and will the Republicans give up their health care just like they did the earmarks?
Well, you'd be interested to know in the Health Subcommittee when the health care bill was going through, I put us in the same group as everybody else in America. And ultimately, the members of Congress will be in under this health care bill that was passed, will all be in the state exchanges, just like everybody else in the country. Right now, the members of Congress do have exactly the same options as every other federal employee, and I think there's 352 different plans you can choose from. And because there's plans across state lines and good competition, the cost increases in federal employees' health insurance have been a lot less than everybody else's, which is one of the problems with the health care plan.
We have a story from Politico. A seemingly unusual alliance, a gay conservative group, and some Tea Party leaders released a letter Monday aimed at igniting a campaign to keep social issues off the Republican agenda. The letter from the gay group GO Proud and leaders of organizations such as the Tea Party Patriots and the New American Patriots urges Republicans in the House and Senate to keep their focus on shrinking government. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's a little bit misguided. I think the #1 social issue facing our country is that we're stealing the future from our kids and grandkids. And if you want to say there's no basis other than let's shrink government, what is the consequences of not shrinking government? 25 years from now, somebody that's 25 is going to owe $1 million in debt on the federal government per individual. You know, there's no question there's controversy around social issues, but I would tell you the greatest social issue we're facing today is the fact that we're going to take and undermine the ability of our children's children to get a college education, to own a home, to have a car, to feed and clothe and house their family because of what we're doing today. So when you use the broad stroke social issues, you know, I'm adamantly pro-life. I'm not going to walk away from that. I believe that we ought to look at those issues just as we look at every other. And there's been a truce in terms of a lot of those issues. What we ought to do is work on the most important one. And the most important issue in our country is a social issue. It's what are we going to leave our kids? And right now we're bankrupting them.
Let's go to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Keith, Republican.
Yes, hi. Good morning, Senator Coburn.
Good morning.
I just want to say thank you for your commitment to the American people. I'm a Catholic. I'm a conservative, certainly pro-life, and I thank you for your commitment to defending life as a United States Senator and protecting life, certainly as a doctor, to care for it. My question for you today is, me being from South Carolina, we're very proud of our Senator Jim DeMint and our new Congressman Tim Scott, who is going there. Our concern is, though, that they don't get up there, the new 60-plus members who are conservative don't get up into Washington and get co-opted and get that thing called Potomac fever after the '94 election with Newt Gingrich, and who certainly I hope runs for president in 2012. We don't want them to lose their ground and realize what they were sent there to do, and that is to shrink government, lower taxes, and to promote the conservative cause and fight for the American people. And we know that you have never lost that ground, and we thank you. So I hope that you can give some inspiration on how we can keep our new guys conservative and true to the conservative cause.
Well, I think you have to hold the members of Congress accountable. And how do you do that? You demand that they have town hall meetings. You go to their offices if they won't. You demand that they're transparent with their votes and the reason for their votes. I mean, freedom isn't easy. So we have to work at it. And the tendency, human nature is human nature, and people tend to migrate to a position of comfort, even in Washington, and even in a position of congressman or senator. So, it's setting up things around you with which will help you limit your arrogance and humble you and put you back in the right way is what you need to be about for your members, and they need to be about as well.
Let's hear from Tony on our independent line in Wisconsin. Hi, Tony.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to ask Senator Coburn why he thinks we should trust the Republicans as far, well, he mentioned Ronald Reagan not supporting a highway plan when he was president. Ronald Reagan expanded our deficit by 186% as compared to Jimmy Carter, who expanded it by about 46%, and Bill Clinton, who expanded it by about 42%, and the two Bushes were at about 76 and 78%. And why should we trust you as an individual when you assist a member of C Street in paying hush money to keep people quiet about an affair? And I'll hang up and listen.
Well, first of all, I don't think you should trust Republicans. I don't think you should trust Democrats. I don't think you should trust any political party. I think what you have to do is hold your individual member of Congress accountable. And I won't debate the history. The fact is you had probably the most sustained growth that this country's ever seen economically in the past 50 years under the Reagan administration. I came in opposing the spending of the Bush administration. I ran, as a matter of fact, was elected on the fact that I was opposing it. So, we label everybody in lots of different ways, and what you have to do is hold people accountable. And so, the labels are not as important as the actions, and I think we need to be judged on our actions.
Story last month that we referenced earlier from Tulsa World says that Senator Coburn made no promises when asked whether Republicans can be trusted to be more fiscally restrained if they regain control of Congress in the November elections. And you said, "I'm not sure I can speak for all Republicans. What I can tell you is I don't think the Republican Party can exist if it doesn't embrace the core principles that made this country great. I'll give you the answer to that after I see the makeup of the Senate and who comes to the Senate after the election."
Yeah,
So reflecting now.
Yeah, look, we get all hung up on parties and labels. We should be past this time where we're divided and partisan and bitter. You can look back. The fact is none of that helps us right now, and we've never been in the trouble we're in today. And I'm hesitant to speak as plainly about it as I know because I think it's too scary. We need to make sure we address first things first, and right now we're in such a financial pickle that if in fact if we threw all the partisanship out and just said how are you going to solve this? How would a family solve it? How would a small business solve it? We could do that, but as long as we have the partisanship and we always think back, it's really alienation. We heard the gentleman from Wisconsin. There was not only facts that he was quoting that I don't necessarily agree with, but there was bitterness there. And when we have that kind of alienation to where we can't get past to solve the problems that are in front of us, we're not going to solve them. And we're all going to be worse off. Whether you're a liberal or a conservative, a Democrat or a Republican, everybody loses.
Let's hear from Marcia, who's a Democratic caller in Ohio. Good morning, Marcia.
Hi, how are you today?
Fine, good morning.
Hi, I really admire, even though I'm a Democrat, but I do admire a lot of Republicans, but I admire what you said about that you do reach out and you have a relationship with President Obama. You're the first person I think I've heard say that. And I'm just going to make some comments and make them real quick, okay? And as far as the earmarks in the past, why was there never anybody to assign to make sure those things were done, you know? They just they took advantage of them and did what they wanted to do. And as far as I agree with you also, the limit in Washington as far as leadership. And I think we not only should we should be trying to get jobs too. I hope this does not end up like the past, where everybody is bickering and nothing is accomplished. Okay. As far as the health insurance, I was had to retire because I became very ill and I worked for the VA medical center. But anyway, my health insurance, when I worked with them, my insurance went up every year, every single year. And I believe that everybody should read President Bush's book, because there's some things that people have overlooked and the media has overlooked to come out and say what he has said in his book.
I'm trying to figure out where to start on that. I think that on the earmark, look, when they're not competitively bid, the other thing is they're not oversighted. So you don't know what happened. Here's this chunk of money that goes to a specific area, and it wasn't competitively bid, so I can guarantee you we didn't get good value for it, whether it was a priority or not. But then you never know and go and value whether or not they actually spent the money on the thing that they were supposed to spend the money on.
This is from Politico. Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska criticizes her Republican colleague Jim DeMint, saying that he and his actions potentially cost Republicans the majority by encouraging candidates that ended up not being electable. Was there a mistake made there? Oh,
I don't know. I mean, you could go the other way. He supported Marco Rubio against Charlie Crist. He got elected. He supported Rand Paul against the others. I mean, I don't think we help anybody by armchair quarterbacking. You know, this is a free country, and you ought to be able to support who you want. And so I'm not sure anybody has all that knowledge that they can pronounce that they know what would have happened had somebody else been the nominee. So, you know, I don't think it's helpful to speculate on it. The fact is what happened, and there'll be another election in 2 years, and let's see what happens.
The Debt Commission, Deficit Commission, rather. What is your take on their recommendations, and how realistic is it?
Well, let's set the stage for it. We have to do something. And when this came through the Senate, I didn't vote for it. In other words, this was a proposed to be set up by the Senate and the House to do this, because I think we already have a deficit commission. It's called the U.S. Congress. And there's no discipline and there's no urgency for us to become austere and solve some of our problems. So the president set up the deficit commission, and I was appointed by our leadership to serve on it. And what has been recommended thus far in terms of the chairman and co-chairman's mark is just a start. It doesn't go far enough. It doesn't get us out of the problems. And it's $3.8 trillion over the next 10 years. And it needs to be about $6 or $7 trillion to start making a difference in terms of whether or not we're going to be able to afford our debt, whether or not we're going to have a decent interest rate on our debt. You know, right now, we're in a very precarious position, both in terms of a liquidity crisis that potentially could come, because when people start rolling against the United States bonds, they're going to do it like that. And what we need is to make sure we've expanded the time with which to get our house in order. And so we have a Treasury Department today that's floating all short-term notes instead of a significant amount of long-term notes. And by the time they're going to want to float them, they're going to cost a whole lot more. And they're doing that in the name of saving interest costs. So I think the problems in front of us are of such a magnitude that people ought to be asking us to throw off labels. I've said even though I don't think we need increased taxes, I'll take increased taxes if we cut spending. I think we have to we have to look down the road and solve the problems for everybody, no matter what their label is.
Are you surprised by the reaction on Capitol Hill to the recommendations? Are you disappointed? Or, I mean, how do you see this actually moving forward?
Well, it's hard to know how it's actually moving forward. Everybody screams when their ox is getting gored. But I think, you know, this is where I'd love to see the president step up and say, folks, I don't care whether you're Republican, Democrat, young or old, every one of us, for us to get out of the problem we're in, are going to have to make a sacrifice. And it's time for you to quit thinking about you and start thinking about other people. And if we were to do that, and we had the leadership to do that, I think you could go down the road with a much more effective resolution